way. So I guess we're for whatever we choose, and if you don't start with God and Christ, I don't know how you get anywhere worth getting.
Well, I think that's the perfect image of where we...
You know, just pause right there. I love that starting conversation, just aligning yourself with God and God in your priority, and like your identity should be first in God, right? And what comes to mind is the whole like climate activism, right? Climate alarmism, climate crisis, and all this stuff, and like we got to save the earth. At what point, you know, like one, salvation is eternal in heaven, not on earth, and then two, like what's the point of saving earth if it's just like to save the trees and evolution? Like no, like you want to save the earth because it is God's creation, right? Hey yo, what's up guys? So I'm coming to you with another video. I took a little break. I was out in the field doing some field exercises, so now we're back here making some videos, having these conversations, and today we're going to look into Pints with Aquinas with Matt Fradd with guest Isabel Brown. Initially I wanted to go over the video, why are men more conservative than women, but she had this other video about how Gen Z is rebelling against authority, and I like that conversation a little bit more because it's a greater conversation about the future is conservative. I've done other videos on this, and ultimately I think it's two reasons. You know, we are living in hard times make strong men era, like we are definitely living it, so we are craving tradition, we are craving what makes us as a society stronger, right? And the whole pendulum swinging too far to the left, whether woke ideology, progressivism, ultimately Marxism, it is detrimental to manhood and femalehood, you know, like whether like corporate culture, whether it's like whatever you want to call it, right? The idea is the idea to be too progressive is off-putting to a lot of people. People are not happy, and people are not becoming stronger individuals because of it. And so again, I think all of this is rooted in tradition, and I want to really get a deep dive into that conversation. And so without burying the lead, if you're new to this channel, what is up? My name is Mitch Maverick Mitch. Hey Mitch, all the Mitches, the call sign Don, and pretty much I like talking about what I talk about. So politics, pop culture, and everything in between. Be sure to check out all my videos as you're finishing this video, and of course hit that like, share, and subscribe as it feeds the algorithm. Help us out, all the YouTuber content creators on YouTube, because YouTube is doing the most. So with that said, let's just get into it.
We have kind of like the what is a woman question, ironically, but I don't think we really have an answer for that.
And I don't think you're going to be able to do that unless you have reference to well, from my angle, God and
Absolutely.
Christ and Christianity
100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, because if we don't know, if God, there's this wonderful line of the Second Vatican Council, I think it's Gaudium et Spes, that says, when God is forgotten, the creature itself grows unintelligible. So if there is no God, then what are we and what are we for? It seems like, well, we are what? The result of time plus matter plus chance. We've evolved in this way. What are we for? Well, for has to do with teleology, and that doesn't seem to make sense, at least in a mind-independent way. So I guess we're for whatever we choose, and if you don't start with God and Christ, I don't know how you get anywhere worth getting.
Well, I think that's the perfect image of where we...
You know, just pause right there. I love that starting conversation, just aligning yourself with God and God in your priority, and like your identity should be first in God, right? And what comes to mind is the whole like climate activism, right? Climate alarmism, climate crisis, and all this stuff, and like we got to save the earth. At what point, you know, like one, salvation is eternal in heaven, not on earth, and then two, like what's the point of saving earth if it's just like to save the trees and evolution? Like no, like you want to save the earth because it is God's creation, right? And this whole idea, and on top of that, it's more of the individual. Like when it comes, when it's not God, it's always on the individual, and then that always more than anything always leads into nihilism, because it's like, what's the point? If you put yourself above everything else, it doesn't have a lot of foundation, versus if you put God, like everything is for God, like then everything makes sense. You know, like I want to start a family for God, I want to do my job for God, I want to serve my country for God, I want to live life and protect everyone else because it is in God's creation and authority and hierarchy and all that good stuff, right? Instead of like I want to do everything for myself, right? It's just this alignment that is so like makes perfect sense, and I think a lot of people are missing that structure. And like, especially when it comes to progressivism, when it comes to like, again, a lot of it, like progressivism is just rooted in power, right? And like, again, like Marxist ideology in which oppressor, you know, you're just trying to obtain the power from the oppressors so that you become the new oppressors. You may not think of it that way, but it's just a power game. It's just right is might, whatever. And so continue. I love this.
We are right now in America, even in a more conservative realm of how we live our lives. We've been operational so secularly for so long that we have become unintelligible. We can't even answer the question, what is a woman in our society, which is the biggest joke of our time, arguably. But we certainly can't tackle some of the biggest human rights issues that we're dealing with, abortion and what's happening with the border and continued crime rising in all of our cities. This is a huge problem that I don't know that we have the right answer for how to solve quite yet, because we've lost that first step in the journey.
But what has been encouraging to me is how many people, maybe of your generation, are embracing conservative Christianity, and they don't want to be pandered to, they don't want like a concert, they don't want to like entertaining speech. This is lovely. I really like, I enjoy talking about the distinction, the differentiation between our generations, because just before we went live, you helped me post something to Instagram because I didn't know how to do that, and you asked, should I post it to your stories? And I said, I don't know what that means, you know, like, and it feels like when I grew up, it was very much about rebelling against the man, you know, and sticking it to authority, where it feels like one of the reasons Jordan Peterson has been so successful is he seems to be saying, no, let's go back to tradition, in a way. You know, I don't agree with everything he says, of course, but let's go back to the way, to time-tested traditions and hierarchy. And so I'm seeing this, like, eagerness and this determination and zeal on, like, my son, you know, Thursday, you, others who are as passionate about our country and conservative. I don't like the word values. I think values sounds sort of epistemologically relative. I like morals or truth, facts, you know.
Okay, pause. I love this, right? And so he just, like, what did they say? Hierarchy and all that stuff. And so I love this conversation. Again, you just want to harken back into a level of, we have seen already how the world is, right? And we can look back into whatever time period and say like, it was working back then. Maybe it wasn't perfect and everything, but at least there was a foundation. At least there was structure. We can build upon it and make it better, and however you want to do that. But like at the very least, you can look at art. You can look at what art used to be. Art was defining what truth is, right? And the truth in God, right? And so you have modern art, which is like a piece of like paper on a wall, and it's not even, it's like crumpled up, and that's supposed to be modern abstract art. Like, it's ugly, right? And so this whole idea, and that's all that postmodernism shit, right? And so this whole idea of going back to tradition, like, you want to have this idea in which it is like rooted into something like greater than yourself, right? And so I think that is what a lot of people are craving. And going, again, the future is conservative, again, going back into like everything that we have seen on TV and like whatever, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? And to some degree, whatever, I'm not saying all of that is bad, whatever. But the point being is that people are craving a level of tradition to the point where, like I said before, in which conservatism is the actual counterculture of today. You know, like, if everyone is doing like partying and all this stuff, and you want to go against the grain. And so again, I love this conversation. Continue.
But you're as passionate about that as I was about like Metallica and giving the middle finger to anybody for no particular reason. reason, and it's kind of cool.
What's funny to think about, Matt, is that is our version of that, though. Like, if you think about the cyclical nature of history throughout all of humanity, every young generation has always shared this common denominator of wanting to rebel against the people in charge. And sometimes that's looked like the free spirit hippie movement when society was so structured and was so gridlocked. I think now we're on the opposite side of that. Our version of Metallica or Stick It to the Man is to rebel against the people in power. And if you look at every single cultural institution in our country today, the church, entertainment, education, politics, our government, every aspect of our life is very loudly controlled by the radical, secularized, authoritarian left. So the only way to truly rebel against society and stick it to the man, so to speak, is to embrace traditional values, to fall in love, to get married, to start families, to embrace very traditional Christianity. I think most people don't know this because we assume Gen Z is this hyper-atheist, godless generation. Believe me, spending a lot of time in politics, I hear the phrase, your generation is destroying America 20,000 times a day, which is just so far from the truth.
If it were the truth, it would be our fault.
Thank
it
you.
Wouldn't be your fault.
Thank you, Matt. You have very much a big brain attitude on this. But nobody wants to admit that. Anyway, I digress. The interesting thing is, 2 years ago in 2021, only a quarter of Gen Zers said that they believed in any higher power.
Okay.
Only a quarter. Today, 2 years later, it's over a third that say we proudly believe in God, and Gen Z is the most likely generation to prefer the traditional Latin Mass. We do not want fog machines and rock concerts and drummers in cages and, okay, everybody text Jesus to 54565 and close your eyes and raise your hand if you accepted Jesus today. We want reverence, we want tradition, we want the beauty of our history, our generational story of what it means to be Christian that I think we can really only find in the church.
Here's an analogy. When I bought this house here in Steubenville, there was shag carpet everywhere. White shag carpet in the dining room. The
dining room, that's rough.
And then there was a big bit of plastic, see-through plastic around the table. I thought this... Anyway, we ripped up all this disgusting carpet, and there was, of course, beautiful wood floors underneath.
Yeah.
You're like, whoever came up with this is the same people who thought liturgical abuse was a good idea. Like, why would you make everything ugly?
And that's exactly what society has done. I think it's been, to some degree, so accepting and so normal in many ways to be a Protestant Christian in America that it's become this anything goes, very half-in, half-out secularized cultural Christianity.
It's like an Americanized view of Christianity.
If you travel to any other country in the world, it is not like this.
The cross means slightly more than the flag. That kind of feeling. I'm not saying anyone's saying that, but you do get that sense. As an Australian,
I would actually go so far as to beg with the opposite. I think many American Protestant Christians, namely evangelical Christians, have started to have this reverence for the flag that does supersede the cross. I talk about this with my fiance all the time. He was raised Southern Baptist. He's now in RCIA and is becoming Catholic this spring, which I'm very excited for him about. But we've noticed with a lot of our friends, as he's been really open about his journey and so excited to join the church and learning more about our history as Christians throughout the last 2,000 years, many of our friends from the political world that we're kind of still involved with tangentially are having this reverence, this respect, this veneration for the founding fathers of our country that they do not have for the founding fathers of our church. In fact, they try to say, Peter was just a guy and he's dead, so we shouldn't pay attention to him anyway. Or Mary, the mother of God, is just an ordinary person. She's dead, so you shouldn't even be talking to her anyway. She's not listening to you. There's this beautiful reverence and respect for traditional conservative values and for the founding fathers of our country that I think American conservatism secularly has nailed down very beautifully. But then you remotely try to bring tradition with a capital T into the conversation or the story of us as a church, and it's almost this like visceral, angry response from so many American Christians that I'm seeing because we've blended tradition so much with the secular side of things, we can't recognize it in the church anymore.
Okay, so closing this off, I love this whole conversation. I think some bullet points that, that rings in my mind about listening to this conversation again about tradition, and again it can kind of just go back into, again, like I was saying earlier about like conservatism is counterculture of today, right? You just want to go against whatever woke stuff, whatever pronouns, whatever, all of this stuff that is just forcing in your mind, like forcing down your throats, and you're just totally over it. But I think this idea of going back into something that is tested and true, I think that is something that is really powerful. But like, it kind of reminds me of this episode in Stargate SG-1 in which there was this, it was the episode where the dome was shrinking. There's the force field that there was like toxic gases, and the force field keeps on shrinking, but like the people inside had like super technology that they're all like Elon Musk really, where they have like a mind chip that actually controlled them all. But the point being is, even in a future society, they decided to keep the architecture remotely, like, I don't know, industrial, right? And so it is this, because when it comes to like idea of too modern, it becomes a little bit stale. I think you need to have some life into it, like with like or something organic. And I think when it comes down to it, like, again, you can look into going back to the idea, like, I think a great example, maybe more better example is how churches are built. Like, a church should not be on a strip mall. A church should be built like over time and consecrated and holy and everything, and filled with like iconography that glorifies God versus just like whatever. Like, God is love on the wall, you know, all of this like home goods type of Hobby Lobby type of ideas. Like, again, that's good to decorate your home, but like not like a church, not something that's supposed to be holy and everything. And so I love this conversation, and it went a lot into the more of the religious side, but the overall idea about like conservatism and tradition, I totally love. And again, the future is conservative because, again, the people, like, yo, the left, they're going off rails. Like, they're burning themselves, they're killing their kids, like, they're not having kids, you know, like, again, you're gonna have a generation gap just because for the purpose of the people who are, the conservatives are gonna have kids. And you're gonna have more kids. You're gonna have a lot of kids. So just by sheer number, the future is conservative. So I will leave it there. And so if you like this video, comment below. Tell me what you think about everything that's going on in the world. And see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Peace, peace, peace. Be with you. Ikaw maspero totoo.